fee for each call completion. So we have not only did the carrier charge from the consumer in his home country, but he also charged from when the call landed in the particular country and got huge amounts of revenue. Now, with the change of satellite communication technologies, this whole concept of charging, the whole concept of switching mechanisms, the whole concept of communication itself has changed drastically. And it required, the United States was the premier country which sort of, which had its FCC, the Federal Communications Committee, which dealt with the entire gamut of things, which also sort of shared it with the other countries. But now it required a complete discussion between the various countries of the world which are developed and developing, and which came to sort of an agreement. The agreement was called the Agreement on Basic Telecommunications of 1997. The Agreement of Basic Telecommunications of 1997 created the basis for about 40 developing countries and another 40 or 50 developed countries, so to speak, in terms of telecommunication, to come together and create what is known as the Agreement on Basic Telecommunication of 1997. And this also was under the umbrella of the WTO, and the World Trade Organization had also come into existence, which created the various bases for all kinds of discussions with respect to the... Now, the main international organization which deals with telecommunication regulation is the International Telecommunication Union, ITU. The ITU is a nodal body which has come into existence with the cooperation of various numerous countries in the world who are technologically developed to create the basis for all exchange of telecommunication information. Now the whole telecommunication issue and its regulation and its legal aspects are under various heads, and they have various kind of ramifications with other organizations. Now, one of the earliest issues with dealing with technology aspects, I would say, is called the International MTS Routing and Transmission Technologies. So the International MTS Routing and Transmission Technologies are dealt with how this entire gamut of servers, the computers or the telecommunication equipment, would switch their communications, how much it would go, how many number of lines, how it would deal with in waiting. All of these issues were dealt with. So there was a whole gamut of issues purely relating to which technology to apply. So countries not only had this the burden of not initially to deal with what technology to apply, because there are slight variation in the various technologies to apply, application of technology. So that was one of the basis aspects of regulation of which technology to apply, the routing technologies. Then, of course, the International Telecommunication Union discusses all of these issues, and they come to a conclusion. Then, besides this, you have the World Intellectual Property Organization, the WIPO. As you must have heard of the WIPO, what it does is WIPO deals with issues where you share. Like my client, he shared a certain information with respect to his technology, and the others misappropriated, appropriated it, and put it into their own use. So the WIPO discusses issues of exchange of information, exchange of technologies, because now, in good old days, let me take you 10 years back, if I had a cell phone, I can talk with you only if you have a cell phone. My having a cell phone, or anybody having a cell phone in England, did not help the situation if his counterparts in India had cell phones. So therefore, if I have to communicate with somebody else, he must have a similar technology. He must have a technology which is sort of vibes, with what you call the handshake. When you send a fax message, there's a fax tone, it connects. There's a handshake. Both the technologies talk to each other. They understand each other and they connect. So, when a person having a certain technology wants to communicate with another person in another country or in another area, he has to share his technology concept. He must say, I have servers of this kind, they use this type of signal, they use, it moves like this, it takes a certain amount, it takes 1/4 of a second to move. All of this is to be shared by another service provider. And once that is shared, they can misappropriate it. So the whole, a huge contribution is there under World Intellectual Property Organization, which is also a UN-related organization, WIPO, which deals with the intellectual property aspects of it. Then of course the World Trade Organization deals with the negotiations and dispute resolutions. Dispute resolution mechanism for telecommunication disputes with respect to any one of these issues are dealt with the World, the WTO, World Trade Organization. Then recently we have what is formed as the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN. Any one of you must have heard ICANN. ICANN deals with domain names. Now when you have a domain name, let us say which is called gmail.com, or you have your own this thing, it has to be assigned by ICANN. The ICANN deals with what kind of domain name, or for instance .org. .com was usually for companies, .org is organization, .org, .net. All of these things are controlled and regulated by ICANN, the International Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. So ICANN is another of these things, because if you would have seen, some of you must be using Gtalk, some of you must be using Skype, which are telephony on the internet. Now there is a distinction between telecommunication as it comes from mobile telephony or the good old gateway when BSNL, good old days when there was no mobile telephony. A call would originate from the US, it would land on a huge computer which is controlled by the BSNL, and then it would come into MTNL. MTNL would give you the call. So now that is bypassed by gateways which are dealing with internet technology. So when you use, which is a different technology, the difference between circuit switching and packet switching. Internet technologies use packet switching. So when you use Gtalk and you've connected your computer with another person who is there on the Gtalk, and you speak with a mic, you are using voice over internet protocol technology, VoIP. And VoIP has now further moved from, let us say, just using a mic while you're using your computer to having a handset instrument. So when you pick up your phone and make a call into the United States or any part of the world, you are using you are riding the network of the internet. Whereas the telecommunication network is different from the internet network. So now you are having a new telephony. Now what happens is, let's look at another thing which is being monitored. It's a serious issue with the government of India. Is a call originates from an internet telephony and lands on through the telecommunication network. So the call is originating on one network, which is the internet network, and goes on to a telecommunication network, which is the good old network. So in this there are issues relating to technology, which is change of technology. There are issues relating to charging. What is the kind of, because certain internet technology networks, the charges are much less, whereas the telecommunication networks, the charges are much more. And sometimes there are agreements. All telecommunication that we have in the whole world are done through agreements. And these are agreements which are prior signed. Otherwise, how will they recover their revenues? Unless there are agreements. Because if one network is transferring a particular data, voice, etc. to another network, there are costs involved in that. So unless there are prior agreements signed between various kinds of network companies, the charges cannot be sort of levied. You cannot raise a revenue from the other network. So therefore, the ICANN also deals with certain of these numbers, which is assigning of the internet protocols and the domain names, and has to interact with ITU, has to interact with WIPO, and all of these together create the basic regulations and policies and rules for the functioning of this huge new network that has come into existence. And some of these issues are under the basic agreement of telecommunication of 1997, which is in great detail. I will touch upon some of those. Then there are issues relating to your satellites, use of satellites, which is governed by the Intelsat, International Telecommunication Satellite Organization. The Intelsat is an organization which deals with satellite communication, because both telecommunication and internet communication is done by satellites. So satellites would have a lot of, if you know, in the United States, there is an exchange which is called the exchange for telecommunications. Like a stock exchange, time for the rates for using networks is traded on that stock exchange, because NCI or AT&T would offer a particular rate. It would offer a pulse rate of 1 second per dollar. 1 second would cost $1. But somebody else who will say that we will transfer this through another satellite, will offer this to you at 75 cents or at $0.50. So there are also issues relating to the costs of the usage of satellite for your networks, which is governed by International Telecommunications Satellite Organization, Intelsat. Now these issues that Intelsat will also have to deal with WTO or deal with ICANN or even the ITU. So satellite communication companies would be having issues which they will have with respect to switching of your networks from one satellite to the other through gateways. It's a very complex kind of area, the whole of satellite this communication. In fact, the statistics have shown that from 2% growth of telecommunication industry, it has grown per annum, it has grown to 12% per annum, and it's growing faster. Day before yesterday, I was invited to an event in Delhi at the Imperial Hotel by the Communication Manufacturers Association. They were celebrating the 500 millionth mobile phone having come into place. That means that out of 1 billion plus population of India, our country has 500 million cell phones, and they were having a huge celebration on that, and it's still moving. People are counting. It is moving at a rapid rate. For instance, you would have seen that your plumber, your carpenter, your what have you, including your cobbler, every single person would have a cell phone now. So therefore, when the numbers are moving at such great pace, the kind of issues and the kind of competition. Now in India, you know that Telecom Regulatory Authority of India is there. There are huge issues relating to licensing areas, whether Reliance would have this particular area or that particular area, how the license would be granted, at what cost, how will they compete, how will they switch the network, issues like can you carry your mobile phone number if you switch carriers, things like that, and day you will find that rates are changing, and sometimes there is a great deal of problems with respect to communication between various BSNL cell phone doesn't work in a particular area so well, things like that. Tata Indicom does work on all the railway lines and things like that. So the networks issues between communications are another very important thing, and all networks are controlled by satellite movement, and satellite companies have their own issues with respect to switching mechanisms, regulations, charges, what have you. Then there are issues which are related to the technical aspects of radio spectrum and orbital positions. That is, you can have orbital positions where the satellites keep moving. Interstate, the satellites will have a problem of orbital positions. It's like a car parking. The satellite, yes, it is. I mean, you're smiling about it. The satellite positioning will have issues like parking. Can it orbit at this latitude and longitude? Can another satellite company which is sent, can it come close? Can it stay there for 2 weeks? Can it stay there